Firmament, finding the truth. Do you have this weird gut feeling that something massive is about to happen in the world? The alien and UFO disclosures coming out could very well have something to do with it.
Have unidentified flying objects been seen?
Well, sure. We have lots of reports about what we call unidentified aerial phenomenon.
Just a few days ago, the Pentagon confirmed that a 2019 video of a UFO sighting is actually real. It was a UFO.
Very importantly, I'm hereby directing the Department of Defense and Pentagon to immediately begin the process necessary to establish a Space Force as the 6th branch of the armed forces. That's a big statement.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
But let's back up a bit. Wernher von Braun worked with NASA in their founding years and was essentially the driving force behind the American space program. In 1960, his entire rocket development group was transferred from the Army to the newly established NASA. And he warned his assistant, Dr. Carol Rosen, about a series of fabricated threats that would be used by the military-industrial complex to lead to a culminating event known as the final card.
The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids.
This new one you're tracking, how big?
It's what we call a global killer. Nothing would survive, not even bacteria.
An asteroid some scientists call a city killer came closer to Earth than the moon this week. The scary thing is that scientists had no idea it was coming.
Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. The way he said it to me, there was no doubt in my mind that he knew something that he was too afraid to talk about.
Now, the modern UFO and alien era began in the mid-1900s, but over the last few decades, you may have noticed that the UFO and alien narrative has been pushed upon the world at a more rapid rate through movies and video games and media outlets as a way of predictive programming to prepare the world for what is to come. This isn't just entertainment, but a way to soften the public psyche so that when a massive event does occur, the masses are already conditioned to accept the alien label. They need everyone to view aliens as a real and near threat, but it's important to know that demons and fallen angels are more real than imaginable. There's an idea that aliens once encountered mankind to share knowledge and ideas about technology, but they need to sell the idea that aliens are from outer space or a distant planet because that's the only way this deception can work to fool the masses. If we go back to the beginning of the modern alien and UFO era, you will find how dark and demonic it really is.
And look at this character right here, Aleister Crowley. He's out there in January through March of 1918 doing a series of magical experiments called the Amelantra Workings, in which he is said to have opened a portal to another dimension, allowing an entity, I believe a demon, named Lamb to enter through it. Now, this is the drawing that he made in 1918 of this character that he apparently had some interaction with. You know, if you look at this picture, it's curiously similar to something we might call an alien gray today in pop culture. So, you know, it doesn't take a whole lot of research on this character to realize he was into some really, really dark stuff. So why did I bring this up? This is, 1918 time frame. Well, you have this character who's very much a part of the early space program, Jack Parsons, who was basically a disciple, practically an heir apparent to Crowley and all of his activities. Well, supposedly Crowley's portal was further enlarged by Jet Propulsion Laboratory founder and rocket fuel scientist Jack Parsons. Okay, this is the guy who was one of the founding members of JPL, who was a big part of NASA and the space program. And he's out there with Scientology and Dianetics founder L. Ron Hubbard in March of 1946 at a location that later became known as Area 51. They're doing all kinds of ceremonial sex magic. And they called it the Babylon working. And it's very similar to the Emelantra working, based on ceremonial sex magic. But unlike Crowley, however, they were not as adept at opening and closing portals, and theirs apparently stayed open, and the modern UFO era began 1 year later, in 1947, the same year Crowley died. So, this is all going on about the same time you've got Admiral Byrd going down there for Operation High Jump. And a decade later, we got the founding of NASA, and these are the characters, okay? Freemasons, Nazis, and occultists creating the space program.
Now, before we can fully understand and grasp how big this deception is going to be, we first have to uncover the underlying deception, the one that burns the whole thing down and shatters the illusion. And that's what we're going to start to look at in part 3 of the Firmament, Finding the Truth.